What up, y'all? Welcome to Swimming Through the Void. So I'm going to start a little series that I've really been wanting to start for the longest time now. Just seems I haven't been able to find time. Now I have some time today, so I'm going to get it started. This is going to be a little series on numerology, on esoteric numerology, on the numbers and how they correspond with the planets and with the tarot and, seeing your synchronicities and all that. We're going to dive really deeply into these numbers. I'm going to be reading a lot from the book Numerology and the Divine Triangle, which is a book that I've had for like over 10 years now and was really one of the doorways into my esoteric and spiritual understandings. I've always been very intuitive and spiritual as well, but it wasn't really until I got into numerology that I started really to dive deeper, to dive into the tarot. So this was sort of one of the doorways for me on my journey. And like I said, I've been wanting to share this with you guys for the longest, so I decided to get it started. We're going to start with a little introduction here. And that's that. So let's get it, y'all. Esoteric numerology. Numerology began when life began, because in the beginning there was one. The vibrations then began, and the two appeared, the first pair, and ushered in the real beginning of universal geometry. Numbers by themselves represent universal principles through which all things evolve and continue to grow in cyclic fashion. The digits 1 through 9 symbolize the stages through which an idea must pass before it becomes reality. All manifestation is the result of these 9 stages. Esoteric numerology is the art and science of understanding the spiritual significance and orderly progression of all manifestation. Every word or name vibrates to a number, and every number has its inner meaning. The letter and number code, when rightly understood and applied, brings us into a direct and close relationship with the underlying intelligence of the universe. We owe much of our spiritual and scientific understanding of numbers to Pythagoras, the father of mathematics. Pythagoras is most commonly remembered for the Pythagorean theorem, which states that the square of the hypotenuse of a right triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. However, Pythagoras was primarily a mystic and a philosopher. He believed that all things are numbers, and that numbers represent spiritual entities whose presence is felt in all of existence. He discovered the mystical significance of numbers, noting that the numbers 1 through 9 stand macrocosmically for universal principles. On the personal level, microcosmically, they stand for characteristics, abilities, and events. He saw in number patterns and geometrical ratios the explanations of all natural phenomena, musical harmony, and tonal qualities. He knew that the stars and planets as vibrating bodies produced sound, which became known as the music of the spheres. Pythagoras was born around 582 BC on the Greek island of Samos in the Aegean Sea. As a young man, he left home and traveled to Egypt, where he was initiated into certain mathematical doctrines. He is also reported to have studied with Zoroaster, the Persian sage, and to have learned the Kabbalah in Judea. The science of numbers he eventually taught was based on Kabbalistic principles. Pythagoras finally settled in Crotona in southern Italy and established a school of the mysteries. Before his students could proceed into the Pythagorean mysteries, they had to know the 4 sciences of arithmetic, music, astronomy, and geometry. Plato was a follower of Pythagoras, and it is to him that we owe most of our knowledge of the Pythagorean school. Pythagoras taught that evolution is the law of life, number is the law of the universe, Unity is the law of God. He believed that everything in the universe was subject to predictable, progressive cycles. His means of measuring these cycles were the numbers 1 through 9. He also taught that numbers have a significance apart from the values denoted by the figures. Numbers are different from figures. Numbers represent qualities. Figures represent quantities. Numbers operate on the spiritual plane, while figures are for measuring things on the material plane. A lucid understanding of these digits is essential in the study of numerology because every number over 9 ultimately reduces to one of these digits. With a comprehensive knowledge of the meaning of these numbers, one can understand the orderly progression of all life cycles. The numbers 1 through 9. Science claims that in a vacuum where nothing exists in time, hydrogen ions spring into existence. 1, as the first digit in the series, represents the ion, the beginning, the genesis, the first spark of energy emerging from the original source. It stands alone and isolated because it is the first. There is no other. It is independent of outside influences or assistance because it has chosen to seek its own self-expression and cannot therefore be encumbered or swayed. It is decisive and independent and makes the choices necessary to ultimately determine its destiny. And that is where we're going to stop. I'm going to cut these into shorter videos, separated by what numbers we're diving into. So let's get to it.